You around all of these people with money, around all these people who are celebrities. But if you were working with P. Diddy and Biggie Smalls, that means you were also around Pac. Dude, I don't understand. I really don't understand how motherfuckers can be talented and can have the blueprint. All you got to do is put in work, but yet you choose to take from people who already got. Sean Diddy Combs has a net worth of $1 billion. I don't even know if y'all can see that. $1 billion. You was around a $1 billion man. And you killed a teacher over $800. I'm pretty sure you was making bank just being around these muckers, because they were popping back then. What it is, what it do, YouTube? Welcome back to another reaction video from your boy Shy J. Hey man, if you're new to the channel, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the post notice so you won't miss another video from your boy. Shy Squad growing, man. We at 18.3. Yesterday we was at 18.2. And we about to hit 18.4 today. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, man. But today, man, we got a crazy one, dog. We got a crazy one. I seen this and I was like, yo, I gotta react to this. The name of the video is Bound and Tortured by a Former Student, $800 for his life. The story of Jonathan Levin. That's crazy. We ain't gonna do too much talking because we already done enough. So let's go ahead and jump into the video, man. Let's get it, man. Let's go. Taft High School, the Bronx.
Before we start today's video, I'd like to take a moment to give my heartfelt condolences to the former colleagues, students, and family of Jonathan Levin, who we'll be discussing today. Today's story is one that many people in this city know very well, and it caught everybody by complete surprise. And it all began right behind me at Taft High School in the South Bronx, when a teacher determined to connect with the students would meet a tragic end, and it would raise serious questions about the boundaries between students and teachers and how far is too far. I do have to warn that today's video contains details that will be very hard to make it through, so before jumping in, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The shots taken for the intro to today's video are my way of paying homage to one of my favorite movies. One very reminiscent of today's story, a film named 187. The film features Samuel L. Jackson as science teacher Trevor Garfield, who teaches at the fictional Roosevelt Whitney High, a rough school located in Brooklyn, New York. Much like our story today, Mr. Garfield shares a tight bond with his students, and he's very much comfortable and confident in his position.
I've never seen that movie before. I never even knew that was a movie. What the fuck?
That's until tensions escalate between him and a student named Dennis Broadway, portrayed by none other than Method Man. And as far as I can tell, this movie is listed as one of his very first acting roles.
Yo, I gotta watch that. Holy shit, that seems like it's a good movie.
Garfield nearly pays with his life when Broadway attacks him on school grounds after receiving a failing grade, sending the teacher's life into a downward spiral of sorts, prompting him to relocate to the West Coast, where he's forced to start over as a substitute teacher. And things out here are much different from how they were back in New York City. Garfield spends his days trying with everything he has to get through to his students, ultimately leading to one of the most tragic endings of any film surrounding the education system. The movie was also written by former substitute teacher Scott Yeagman, who himself experienced a lot of what the film depicts. From Dangerous Minds to The Substitute, and plenty of other films before, Dangerous High School has been portrayed on the big screen for decades. But in many cases, the weight of reality is much heavier than what you see play out on the big screen. The movie was released on July 30th of 1997 by Warner Brothers Studios, and some who saw the film upon its release would be harshly reminded of what took place just a few weeks prior in New York City, when a beloved school teacher by the name of Jonathan Levin, who was the son of the CEO of Time Warner, a man determined to be in his students' lives, would have his life brutally taken, and the person charged with the crime was one of the very students he tried so hard to befriend. On today's episode of Evil Intentions, this is His Kids, the story of Jonathan Levin.
That's crazy, dog.
I walked in primarily to get a hold of the dog. The police were afraid of the dog. And so I went to the kitchen where he usually kept the dog if he wasn't around. And originally I thought I saw the dog laying there, but it was actually John.
Jonathan Levin was born on May 6th of 1966 and resided in Manhasset, Long Island. He was born to his mother, Carol Needleman, and his father, Gerald Levin. The area of Manhasset, Long Island, located just 23 miles from Midtown Manhattan, is known to attract many for different reasons. From calm beaches and parks to walking trails and all sorts of shopping, the area has a little bit of everything for everyone. You'll find all sorts of luxury shops, as well as different types of restaurants. Whether you're looking for fine dining or the more casual dining experience, the Gold Coast, Long Island neighborhood is where Jonathan and his family resided and called home. According to reports, Jonathan was mostly raised by a single mother and was the youngest of 3 children, having an older sister and older brother. In the 1960s, Jonathan's mother would find herself studying education at the University of Pennsylvania, and she had plans of becoming a teacher later on in life, even volunteering at an alternative high school, Satellite Academy, in Manhattan's Lower East Side. Jonathan's father, Gerald, had spent most of his career with company Time Warner, starting there in 1972 as a programming executive for HBO.
That's fucking crazy.
Eventually becoming CEO of the company in 1992. Jonathan's parents would divorce when he was about 4 years old, long before Gerald began to move up the corporate ladder. Growing up in the middle upper class neighborhood of Manhasset, and given Jonathan's ties to the corporate world, many would assume that he and his siblings lived a rich and flashy lifestyle, but this really couldn't be further from the truth. They were a loving family who were very much grounded and didn't associate with those sorts of crowds. From having fun with friends at school to playing baseball with his older brother in the driveway of their Manhasset home, he always made sure to have the best time when he was with his loved ones. Jonathan, who also went by the nickname Jake, was described as someone who loved to have fun and wasn't afraid to be himself. He attended a public school where he made a lot of friends. According to those who knew him, Jonathan was witty, spontaneous, and loved to socialize at school, often being referred to as a wisecracking teenager who sometimes wasn't as engaged in school as he could be because he felt that the teachers simply didn't connect with him. He had average grades and would sometimes even get kicked out of class for cracking jokes. He would attend Manhasset High School, and while there, also held a job washing dishes at a bar. Despite not being fully engaged in class, everyone around Jonathan knew how smart he was, and he was pretty passionate depending on what the topic was. One of those topics being hip-hop. While he was growing up in Long Island in the 70s and 80s, the sounds of hip-hop were becoming increasingly popular, with the lyrics giving listeners a glimpse into the world of life on the streets and the challenges that came with growing up in New York City. He loved the art form so much that for a while, he even wrote lyrics of his own. He listened, and through the music, gained access to a great deal of knowledge about the world outside of Manhasset, life in the 5 boroughs. After high school, Jonathan would attend Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, where he majored in English and psychology. While here, Jonathan felt like he didn't quite fit in with the people at the school, mostly because the prep school type of crowd the school was known for at the time was a crowd he and his siblings weren't really familiar with. They never really ran in preppy crowds, sometimes making for an uncomfortable experience. Jonathan, however, would stick it out and end up graduating college. And soon after, he would move right here to 69th and Columbus on Manhattan's Upper West Side. While living here, he landed a job selling travel insurance, and the position gave him the freedom to work from his apartment. He was fond of being able to work on his own and not have a supervisor breathing down his neck. But as time went on, he didn't feel like he was fully utilizing his education, leading him to feeling like the job wasn't keeping his interest. He held the job for about 5 years before he began looking elsewhere, hoping to land a job he felt passionate about. Being the son of CEO of Time Warner, Gerald Levin, money certainly wasn't a problem, but this was bigger than that to Jonathan. He didn't want any handouts, and he simply wanted to walk his own path.
See, I always say being a good person, they always get the shit end of a stick. I swear, bro. I see it all the time. All the good people always die young. I know that's an old saying, but it's actually true, bro. Like I seen it firsthand at my school when, I mean, granted, students shouldn't be disrespectful to teachers anyway, because the teachers are there to help you. You know what I'm saying? But I seen students that would really be like assholes to cool ass teachers, nice ass teachers, just for the just for the fun of it, bro. Like, and it used to piss me off real bad. Like the whole class would be laughing, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, bruh, Mr. Such and Such, cool. Why are y'all doing him like this? Why y'all don't do this the old bitch down the hall or some shit? Like, she an asshole and y'all respect her, but the nice teacher, y'all want to walk all over him. He telling us to sit down, they still standing up. They still talking over him. Like, you could see the frustration in his eyes to the point where he was in tears. And I'd be like, what the fuck, bro? I just hate people like that, bro. I swear I do.
He loved. The idea of Jonathan pursuing a teaching career was one he didn't speak
It's always the good people.
He felt like he didn't want to talk about it until he was sure he was on his way to accomplishing.
Like, this man didn't even have to be a teacher, bro. His pops was rich. He could have got into the company with his daddy.
He would meet others who had connections in the school system in the city. And as he made more connections, would eventually find himself at William Howard Taft High School, located at 240 East 172nd Street in the Bronx, a job that would change the course of his life. Taft was a high school that had a strong reputation for being one of the roughest schools, not only in the city, but the country. At the time, the school was home to more than 4,000 kids and had a 20% dropout rate, and the school was fit with metal detectors due to weapons being brought into school in the past.
I'd be damned if that don't sound like Lean on Me.
But this didn't scare Jonathan away. He found himself eager to take on the position and was hired by Taft in 1993. While teaching full-time at Taft, he also attended NYU's teaching program for his graduate degree, something he would have likely pursued either way. But his job at Taft depended on getting that degree. He loved literature, specifically Shakespeare, and was all about learning new things as much as he could, and strongly believed he could be successful at instilling that same sense of love and curiosity into the minds of his future students. So, he didn't let anything slow him down. Jonathan's decision to jump at this opportunity was surprising to some, but he was focused on taking his new career as serious as possible, taking great pride in his new role as an educator. Jonathan seemed to have a different type of connection to his students, and he was quickly popular in the school. He was dedicated, and the lessons taught in room 250 at Taft were unlike any other in the school. While he was teaching English, the current events of the times were always a part of the class discussions.
1997.
One of the more unsettling and heartbreaking topics he discussed with his students was the slaying of Elisa Izquierdo in 1995, a story I've gone into in great detail on this channel. Jonathan would make sure to buy newspapers that donned headlines and articles of the girl's short life, and would make copies of the articles to hand out to his students, engaging them in a different way.
What?
Having them learn to debate and
Did y'all see that title? Says she loves her other kids. As she's standing in a courtroom for killing her own child. That is fucking insane.
Engaging them in a different way. Having them learn to debate and listen to each other when it came to the topic of domestic abuse, while other teachers often shied away from these topics. He understood that these were headlines and events that were going on in these neighborhoods, and they hit very close to home for many. They weren't just topics, but real-life tragedies that were happening all over the city, mainly in neighborhoods like the one Taft was located in. Rap music, of course, was also used in class as a way to connect to the students, also drawing the parallels between the music and some of the books they'd read in his classroom. He also loved sports, as did many of his students, the Yankees being his favorite team. During class, if the Yankees won the night before, the first thing Jonathan would do is write the score on the blackboard and keep it up there.
Oh, that's dope.
The students. If the Yankees lost, his students had no problem rubbing it in his face in a lighthearted manner, making for funny moments between them. Rap music gave Jonathan a window into life on the street and what it felt like to be in places like the Bronx. So when he got there, he had an idea of what to expect. It only helped him. He was fully committed to connecting with his students. They would do everything in class, from reading books like Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, to listening to rap and Spanish music, finding the meaning behind the lyrics and how it related to their everyday lives. During class, the desks would often be set up into a circle for group activities and deep discussions on what they were studying. Also written on the blackboard was a quote by Jonathan that would read, "Respect yourself, and others will respect you." The hours would fly by for the students, who would start to feel like Jonathan was someone who loved what he did. Jonathan would show up to programs that had nothing to do with him or the school, showing his students how much he wanted to be a part of their lives, treating his position like more than just a job. It would take some time, but as this continued, students began to see that this was someone who genuinely wanted to see them do well. He gave his students lots of attention and wanted them to know that they had someone who was by their side, someone who had hopes and dreams for all of them, someone who would take the time to try and understand them rather than judge them or disregard them. During a class assignment, Jonathan would have the students write an essay about themselves. They were never pressured to share too much, but enough for everyone to get to know each other on a more personal level. He would also participate in the assignment, giving his students a closer look at who he was and where he came from, information that had been kept to himself for years. He did this because he knew some people might make assumptions about him and who he was as a person. And through this, for the first time, it was revealed that he was the son of Time Warner CEO Jonathan Levin. Something that would come as a shock to many, because how did the son of a wealthy Time Warner CEO end up teaching in the South Bronx? But the simple answer was, Jonathan was there because he truly wanted to be. This news would make its way around the school among both the students and the staff, but Jonathan stood the course, keeping his focus on being a good teacher with a goal to connect with his students and keep them driven. His students, in a lot of ways, reminded him of himself when he was in school, and he wanted to bond with his students in a way his teachers never could with him. He would take the students on trips even outside of school hours, so going to places like Six Flags and Yankee Stadium for spring games wasn't surprising. He would also take them out to dinner if they met a goal with schoolwork. He at times expressed his frustrations about some of the parents of the students, mentioning that some of them simply didn't care about their kids or their schoolwork, a big reason for him trying as hard as he did. He opened his home to them, letting them into his personal life, even providing some of the students with his home phone number, just in case they ever needed his help. Some felt this was a mistake, or that boundaries weren't set between him and his students, but he wanted them to feel like they had a strong support system, even if he didn't see the risk right at that moment.
Yeah, I can't even lie. That was kind of crazy right there. Like, you in the most dangerous school in the United States of America, and you gave them your address and phone number.
Outside of his work in the school, Jonathan could be seen in his Upper Manhattan neighborhood walking his dog Julius and stopping in at the local deli to buy a slice of cheese to feed Julius as a snack. He always made sure to wave hello to the workers as he strolled by. Jonathan also found time in his private life to put effort toward a new relationship, one that started
I was just thinking, was he married?
When he began dating a fellow school teacher at Taft. They were very much into each other, and things became quite serious between them, with them doing everything from spending a lot of time together to vacation in the Dominican Republic. They even had talks about possibly getting married down the line. Jonathan would even meet her family, and for many, this is considered a big step forward in a relationship, showing commitment, and perhaps that the person intends on being around for a long time.
Well, not nowadays.
They connected on many levels, and both of them sharing a passion for teaching made it all the more meaningful. By the time spring of 1997 arrived, everything in Jonathan's life was going exactly as he wanted it to. He had his relationship. He was about 3.5 years into being a teacher, a job he loved, and he was starting to feel like he was really making a difference in the lives of his students. But all the good he had done and all the great things unfolding in Jonathan's personal life would come to an abrupt and heinous end just a few short weeks after his 31st birthday. On this day, a group of teachers from Taft High School were scheduled to have a meeting that revolved around the future of the school, a meeting about talks to restructure and make the school better for students and staff alike. Jonathan's girlfriend would arrive at the school around 7:30 a.m., and of course, she looked for Jonathan, since he was a key figure in these talks and was expected to attend his meeting. But as the morning went on, Jonathan never showed up. This was highly unusual for him because he wouldn't miss this meeting for the world, and he would drop everything when it came to his students. The meeting came and went, and there was no word from him. Immediately, a sense of dread was set in, as his colleagues and family knew that there just had to be more to this. Where was he? Why hadn't he called anybody to explain his absence? Something he surely would have done. Minutes turned to hours, and hours turned to days, with absolutely no sign of Jonathan, and his family and colleagues would begin to think the worst. They would become frantic over the next couple of days, because things felt very much off, as if something terrible had happened, and they were right. On Monday, June 2nd of 1997, the start of the school week was here, but Jonathan was still nowhere to be found. For his girlfriend and colleagues, this was a huge red flag, because
so was it one of his students?
Jonathan had perfect attendance,
or just somebody at the school?
At Taft. It was now clear to the other teachers that something was terribly wrong, and John was for sure missing. Jonathan's girlfriend wasn't sure how to handle what was happening, especially because when she asked around, nobody else had seen Jonathan either, so nothing felt right. One of her colleagues accompanied her to Jonathan's apartment, hoping to finally get in contact with him. When they arrived, they knocked on his door, desperate for an answer, but there wasn't any. It would only be a few minutes before Jonathan's girlfriend noticed a foul odor coming from inside the apartment, making her heart sink to her stomach.
That
Her
would
friend
scare the shit out of him.
911. Authorities would make their way to 205 Columbus Avenue, Jonathan's apartment building. He lived on the 3rd floor. At this point, a great deal of panic had set in, and slowly but surely, residents in the building began to notice the commotion. One of those neighbors was someone Jonathan shared a friendship with, and he had a spare key to Jonathan's place, because sometime before this, he had asked his neighbor that if he ever needed to work late, would his neighbor mind walking his dog for him? His neighbor was okay with that, and on this evening, sometime after 10 p.m., closer to 11, Jonathan's neighbor received a knock on his door. When he opened, in his doorway were 2 officers and Jonathan's frantic girlfriend and colleague. The officers asked him where he last saw Jonathan, to which he replied he hadn't seen him all weekend. He would let them know he had access to the apartment and agreed to let them in when they asked. And same as Jonathan's girlfriend, the first thing he noticed when he opened up the door was the overwhelming odor emanating from within the apartment. They began walking further into the home. The volume on the TV was at max volume and turned to New York 1. Eventually, they'd come upon a figure on the ground. The neighbor's eyes struggled to adjust to the dark apartment, so he couldn't make out what this was at first. In fact, when he first saw this, he thought it was Jonathan's dog, but as he focused, he would quickly learn that this was Jonathan, and he was lying face down in a pool of his own blood. He was lying about halfway out of the kitchen, and the blood was coming out of a hole in his head. As they made the horrible discovery, Jonathan's girlfriend tried to rush her way into the apartment past the officers, as they tried to keep her away so she wouldn't see the body, but she made it in far enough to see him lying on the floor. She had no doubt she was looking at Jonathan's lifeless body, because he was wearing a shirt that she had gifted him. Unable to contain her grief, she began crying out and screaming. She was inconsolable. Once investigators reached the scene, they would take time to try and piece together what might have taken place. Upon investigating his body, they would get their first look at the state of the apartment, what was done to Jonathan, and the condition his body was in. His apartment seemed unusually messy, with beer bottles and open food containers lying around, as if Jonathan might have had a visitor. There was also no signs of a break-in, indicating that whoever was here was more than likely let in by Jonathan because he knew them. A neighbor below Jonathan's apartment was interviewed, and they stated that they could hear Jonathan's dog Julius pacing back and forth for the last few days. Investigators would find his dog locked in the bedroom, unharmed. They would determine that due to the state of decomposition his body was in, he'd more than likely been deceased for a few days already. His ankles and wrists were bound with duct tape, and he was gagged. He had slashes and stab wounds across his chest and his neck, as if whoever did this to him wasn't trying to kill him with the knife that was used, but rather slowly torture him. It seems this was done to him for a time before the person responsible held a gun to the right side of Jonathan's head and pulled the trigger, believed to be the one shot that ended his life. But as they checked the scene, there was no gun found. The knife used and a roll of duct tape were found nearby. Authorities had more questions than answers, but once evidence was collected, they tried their best to narrow things down to find out who did this to Jonathan. Someone who didn't have any known enemies, who was loved by so many. Not many knew of what happened yet, but the news would slowly make its way around. On June 3rd of 1997, at 2:45 a.m., Carol, Jonathan's mother, was sleeping when her phone would start to ring off the hook. This would happen from time to time, and it was always just a mistaken number or a prank call. She got out of bed half asleep and disconnected the phone so she could continue sleeping without the phone going off. The next morning, she woke up, ready to get her day started with a workout. But before she started, she remembered to reconnect her phone. Within a split second, the phone was again ringing off the hook. It was a family member on the other end, frantically trying to explain that something terrible had happened. They mentioned John, but she still had trouble understanding exactly what was happening. "What John are you talking about?" It was at that moment that the person on the other end of the phone made it clear that they were talking about her son, Jonathan, and he was gone. The news of her son's passing was overwhelming, and she, like many others, just wanted to know who did this to him. Detectives went many different routes before discovering the truth of what happened. Throughout the course of their investigation, detectives would learn that Jonathan's girlfriend had an ex-husband who wasn't too happy about her new relationship with him. On one occasion, he showed up to her home unannounced while Jonathan was there, and the two men exchanged insults. He wasn't fond of the fact that his ex had moved on. The tense situation between Jonathan and his girlfriend's ex-husband wasn't ignored, and the ex-husband was at first considered a suspect, because it wouldn't be the first time that an ex became enraged at something like this. But her ex-husband had an alibi. In this instance, jealousy didn't make the man a killer. He wasn't their guy. Another possibility in their eyes was that Jonathan might have been a victim of serial killer Andrew Cunanan, who at that point had already taken the lives of 4 men before his 5th victim on July 15th of 1997, world-famous Italian fashion designer Gianni Versace. This was mainly a...
Wow. What the fuck? Oh, he was... What? Yo. This motherfucker killed Versace?
going theory because of similarities in the crime itself. But this wasn't who took Jonathan's life. They kept asking around, hoping to close in on someone responsible. Many of Jonathan's neighbors were asked if they had heard or seen anything strange. The last person to see Jonathan other than his killer was a woman who worked at the local deli located under Jonathan's apartment. He ordered a sandwich and went about his day like he often did, but that was all. They believe Jonathan returned to his home around 3:30 p.m. that Friday evening. They would get their best piece of evidence yet when they went through the messages on Jonathan's answering machine. The tape on the machine was flooded with messages from worried colleagues who'd been calling the last few days, hoping to get in contact with him. They sifted through many of the messages that played from newest to oldest when they'd hear a message that got their attention. A message left on Friday, May 30th of 1997 at 4:55 p.m. It was a message left.
Wait a second. This had to be during the summertime. Unless, when did they start school? Because, who's in school in May?
By someone named Corey. He sounded young, so they thought this might have been a student. When they traced the phone call, they would find that it came from a payphone not far from Jonathan's apartment, but that was all they had. As they pursued that lead, they would receive a phone call about the roll of duct tape left at the scene. They were able to make a match to a print left on the inside of the roll. It would lead them to 19-year-old Corey Arthur, a former student of Jonathan's from the years 1993
Motherfucker look like a retarded Kanye.
Corey and Jonathan met when Jonathan began teaching at Taft, and the two were fast friends, keeping in contact even after Corey dropped out. Jonathan saw Corey as someone who was talented, with the ability to rap and write poetry.
This motherfucker look awfully a lot like Kanye, dog. And Kanye was from New York. I wonder if they're related. Cause, bro, like, this looks like a young version of Kanye. Literally. Damn near splitting image.
Over time, Corey saw Jonathan
And he
as
rapped.
someone who was really into the
And
same
did
things as
poetry.
he was, into sports, into hip-hop. It wasn't just an act that Jonathan was putting on. Arthur would also be one of the students that Jonathan opened his home to. He thought that Arthur would do good in school if he could keep up the good work, but pretty soon after, he would drop out altogether. According
So this
to
was just a
reports,
motherfucker
it was
who
said that
used
before all
him.
of this, Corey was running with the likes of the notorious B.I.G. and was
What?
affiliated with his people. It was also said that he was a
Oh, shit. Wow. I was not expecting that. I forgot what I was about to say. Oh, I was saying that the student basically used him, dog. Like he played on his innocence or preyed on his innocence. Seeing that the fact that he liked to help people who are struggling, he used that as a way to lure him in. That's fucked up. That is absolutely fucked up, bro. But this motherfucker ran with Biggie Smalls? Holy shit.
driver for Big, even credited in the notes of Ready to Die. By 1994, there were Big, even credited and was affiliated with his people. It was also said that he was a driver for Big.
Oh shit.
Ready to Die. By 1994, there were a number of arrests on
bro, this shit is
selling drugs.
Fucking crazy,
the
dog.
message left by Corey was him saying, "Mr. Levin, this is Corey. I need to see you. Pick up if you're there. It's important." Another important piece of evidence was the fact that Jonathan's wallet was found with a few credit cards, but his bank ATM.
I'm just trying to tie all this shit together because, motherfucker, you work for Biggie Smalls and Sean P. Diddy Combs. And you killed a teacher over $800. I'm pretty sure you was making bank just being around these motherfuckers because they were popping back then. What the fuck? What the fuck? And if you were working with Sean and P. Diddy, well, that's the same person. But if you were working with P. Diddy and Biggie Smalls, that means you were also around Pac. But I think Pac was dead by then. You know, Pac died in 97, didn't he? Yeah, I think he did. But still, you were around all of these people with money. Around all these people who are celebrities. Bro. And you rap? Bruh, I don't understand. I really don't understand how motherfuckers can be talented and can have the blueprint. All you gotta do is put in the fucking work, but yet you choose to fucking take from people who already got. That's fucked up. I don't like that shit.
ATM card was missing. Because of this, authorities would start scanning local banks to see if maybe Jonathan had been seen or if he was a client of theirs.
Imagine, I'm sorry, but imagine, bro. Just imagine if he had not done this shit and he stuck with P. Diddy and he stuck with Biggie Smalls. This motherfucker might be the new Kanye, or he might have been up there with Kanye. Even Kanye could have been the Ye twins or some shit. Like, bro, like imagine that shit, bro. Imagine if he had not acted on that shit, where he would be today. He would probably be one of the top rappers right now, or one of the top beat producers, or one of the top musical managers. He would be something in music if he was around them. He was around I know for a fact he was around two of the most iconic artists when it comes to hip hop music. Two, not just one, two, and possibly Pac. Like, what the fuck?
To see if maybe Jonathan had been seen or if he was a client of theirs. Surveillance wasn't as common as it is these days, so there wasn't much recorded evidence of who might have been in and out of the bank or Jonathan's apartment. As they received more information and confirmed his bank, they would find out that Jonathan's account had recently had a withdrawal of $800 the maximum withdrawal amount at the time. The withdrawal was made at 5:15 p.m. that Friday evening, just a little while after Corey called Jonathan and left that message. Now, the area surrounding the ATM section of the bank did have surveillance, so authorities got a hold of that security tape, and in the recording, a man could be seen making a withdrawal, but something wasn't adding up because the person making the withdrawal didn't look anything like Corey. This was a whole different person, somewhat shorter with a stockier build, while Corey was taller and slimmer. So who was this? Another question they didn't yet have an answer for. This is when they started to look into Arthur having an accomplice. By this point, the story had national attention, and many resources were utilized for the search. An $11,000 reward for any information that would help detectives make an arrest was added, and sure enough, another tip would come in. The tip that came from an anonymous source would state that Arthur had recently pulled something off with someone named Monty, a nickname for a man named Montoon Hart, someone with a record of his own. They cross-referenced their information and made a connection between them. They waited outside of Hart's mother's home, hoping to get a hold of him, and at around 5 a.m. of June 7th, Montoon Hart drove up to the home as they waited. They approached him and asked him if he knew someone by the name Corey Arthur, and asked if he would mind coming down to the station with them for questioning. Surprisingly, he agreed. It didn't take long before he started talking when put under pressure, and he would reveal that he knew Corey Arthur, and he was with Corey Arthur at Jonathan's apartment the day he was killed. He stated that the motive behind the slaying was a robbery gone terribly wrong. It was a plan that was ironed out between Arthur and Hart as they rode the A train from Brooklyn to Manhattan that afternoon of May 30th, 1997. Hart explained that he was told Jonathan would be a good target for a robbery, more than likely due to him being the son of someone wealthy. He would say that at gunpoint, he was forced to tie Jonathan up with duct tape and torture him for the pin to his ATM card. He said he didn't know Jonathan and only did what he was told. After he was tortured,
I'm not believing that. Ain't no fucking way you finna tell me that this 18-year-old kid was telling this full-grown man what to do, unless he's slow as shit. Nah, hell nah. I believe y'all both orchestrated the plan, and you was telling him how to do it, bro. Come on, bro. Fuck out of here. You just trying to get some of the heat up off your neck.
According to
I ain't believing that shit.
Arthur was the one who held the gun to Jonathan's head.
He might did
once, taking his life in cold blood.
He might did, but he ain't do it on his own.
And promising
he wasn't the mastermind.
Arthur was still out there on the loose. Thanks to the tips received earlier, authorities had also gotten word that someone overheard Corey saying that he shot Jonathan in the head, and Hart was the one who tied him up and stabbed him. Going off of what Hart had told them and the information that they had already received, they had more than enough to arrest Arthur. It was in the afternoon of June 7th of 1997 that detectives would set their focus on the Bed-Stuy Sumner houses because they received a tip that this was where Arthur was. The tip came from his girlfriend. She knew about what happened to Jonathan because she said that Arthur told her. He also said it would be a while before he could see her because he was on the run. He knew that he was being sought all over the city. They had him because he was on the run.
He told me that Monty tied the guy up and hit him and stabbed him. Wheat said of Hart 26, who will be tried separate. God damn, I can't read. I promise I can read, y'all. Did he tell you anything else? Assistant Director Attorney Eugene Hurley asked as Levin's mother, Carol Needleman, stared wide-eyed at the witness. That he shot the guy. Weeks replied that he couldn't believe he shot his teacher. I told him I didn't believe him.
He knew that he was being sought all over the city. They hadn't been able to find him anywhere else in Brooklyn when they visited different locations prior to this. He was found at the address provided and taken into custody right away. While in custody, Corey would begin to tell authorities his version of what took place. The information he provided definitely surprised them when they heard. According to him, he was at Jonathan's apartment that day he was last seen. But his reason for visiting Jonathan's home was because Jonathan paged him so he could make a drug purchase from him, specifically crack. And shortly after, Arthur went over to deliver. He would say that he and Jonathan did crack together in his apartment when out of nowhere, two men broke in, looking to rob the place. This didn't sit well with those who knew Jonathan. It was stated that Jonathan smoked marijuana once in a while, but never anything close to crack. Jonathan had previously reported another teacher at Taft for their crack use because in his...
Now, I'll be the first to say, I've seen shit like that happen, but never the supplier going to the customer's house and doing the product with the customer. Never seen that shit. But I have seen people that you would never think of go and buy crack, marijuana, and literally they look like your average Joes. Like, literally nobody you would think would do that shit. But I don't believe that story at all, whatsoever. I have seen some shit like that happen, but never the supplier doing his product with the buyer, because otherwise, what's the point of him buying? So he gonna buy from you so y'all can do it together. What the fuck?
Eyes, it was unacceptable. As friends and family of Jonathan suspected, this couldn't have been true, because when they received the toxicology results, there was no drugs in his system. So what really happened? While Montoonhart had already implicated Arthur in the slaying, Corey would give a version of events where Hart wasn't even involved. As mentioned, he blamed the whole thing on two random strangers, saying he didn't know who Montoonhart was, but the evidence and information coming to them was coming from someone very much acquainted with both men. In addition to this, a neighbor that lived a few doors down from Montoonhart's mother would say that he would often see Corey Arthur and Montoonhart together. He saw them on several different occasions long before this. He would see them outside of the home having conversations. It was clear that the idea of Hart and Arthur not knowing each other was a lie, and there's no way he could have known as much as he did about Jonathan and the scene of the crime, unless he was there. He said Corey stood back at the apartment while he went to the Chase Bank a few blocks away and made the withdrawal, as seen on camera. This also fell in line with the surveillance footage they had. The two men would point fingers at each other, blaming one another for the crimes. Arthur saying that Jonathan was still alive when he left the home, and Hart saying it was Arthur who took the shot, with Hart taking the ATM card for the withdrawal after. But ultimately, it would be Corey Arthur who was charged with his killing, and it was determined that the entire plot was Arthur's idea. He used the trust he knew Jonathan had in him and used it against him. He gained access, and the two of them
That's exactly what I said.
And tortured him for his debit card number. The story about two random strangers coming in wasn't plausible. They turned the TV's volume all the way up, and they left the vacuum running to cover up the sounds of Jonathan's screams. Once they felt like they had what they came for, it was time to finish the job, and to be absolutely sure that John wouldn't say a word of what happened, he was shot in the head, a life taken with no regard, and it was all for the love of money. They spent the next few days avoiding authorities, driving around.
What's the fucking point, bro? I always wonder that shit. Like, you rob somebody. Not only rob them, you kill them, and you go on the run and spend that money just like that. Now you back broke. But you took an innocent life just to spend that money within the 1 or 2 days. And now you gotta spend the rest of your life in jail. Or they probably gave your dumb ass the electric chair, because that shit fucking stupid. What the fuck, dog? I never understood that shit. What's the point of fucking robbing somebody? You robbing somebody. This is the logic. You rob somebody, possibly kill them, and go on the run and live on the run for the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. What fucking sense does that make? What fucking sense does that make? You living free. Yeah, you broke and fucked up, but you living free. You rob somebody for $800 and now you on the run for the rest of your life. You can't get a job. You can't go out in public. So what? You just gonna hide in a fucking rut or a hut all fucking day? What's the point? What is the absolute point? That shit is stupid.
Found in Hart's mother's car, spending the money.
You just killed somebody for no fucking reason. Took a life for $800.
Said that author spoke openly about the killing to his girlfriend and to others who were in attendance at a party. His girlfriend would also.
Both of y'all got $400 a piece. Look at it. Stupid as fuck. 400. We hit a lick. $400 a piece.
Say that author told her he pulled all of this.
Couldn't even get a fucking haircut with that money.
Off with Montoon Hart's help, fully implicating him in the crime. It was only a matter of time before word got around.
A murder mystery in Manhattan. The son of a well-known corporate chief is found shot to death in his New York apartment.
Joel, a high-profile murder mystery in Manhattan. The son of Gerald Levin, chairman of Time Warner, has been found murdered. The body of 31-year-old Jonathan Levin was discovered in his New York apartment. Police say Levin's hands and feet were bound with duct tape. He was gagged, lying in a pool of his own blood. Ambulances rushed to Taft High School in the Bronx as students became distraught when they heard about the death of their popular English teacher. 8 people had to be hospitalized. Meantime, around Levin's apartment where his body was found, police were showing neighbors the photo of an unidentified woman police believe knew Levin. An autopsy this morning showed Levin had been shot in the head. It was a worried neighbor who brought police into the apartment.
And when I walked in the kitchen, I saw this bright shape in the shadow. I thought it was the dog. I right away yelled, "The dog is dead." And the cops yelled the same thing. And then when we took a closer look, we realized he was gone.
Jonathan's father, from whom he was reportedly estranged, is Gerald Levin, the man on the right. He heads Time Warner, the media conglomerate that includes Turner Broadcasting, CNN, HBO, and Time Warner Cable TV.
That's fucking crazy, dog.
New York police also say that Levin's apartment showed no signs of forced entry or burglary. He was last seen at school.
That's fucking crazy, bro. Just imagine if he would have took the route that his daddy's. Well, I mean, his daddy was estranged, so. But I'm pretty sure he probably could have worked something out to where he could be working with his dad. Or if his dad was in his life and he took that route, he probably would still be living today. But still, the fact that this shit happened over $800 is pissing me the fuck off, bro. You literally took somebody's life for $400 a piece. $400 a piece, bro. And not that you can put a amount on a life, but still, $400, stop. $400. You killed a teacher. You can't tell me that you sat there all this time, had all these conversations with this teacher, built a friendship with this teacher, and not have any type of love or sympathy for this man. If you didn't, you are a fucked up, evil individual. There's no way that I can confide and coincide with or sit and talk to somebody all this time and smile in their face and then turn around and backdoor them over some fucking bullshit. Bitch, you was with Son Diddy Combs and Biggie Smalls. $400 is what they used to wipe their ass with. And y'all split that shit and killed the man over that shit. Absolutely ridiculous, bruh. Absolutely ridiculous.
On Friday, co-workers were concerned because he didn't show up at a teachers' conference on Saturday or at school yesterday.
News of Jonathan's passing would send shockwaves and feelings of grief across the city. Family, teachers, and students were all left dealing with an overwhelming sense of loss as new information came to light. Some students had to be hospitalized because of nervous breakdowns and fainting when they heard the news. It was clear that this was extremely heavy for many. Grief counselors would be brought into the school to help grieving students and staff. Nobody knew what to think at first, but when it was first learned that it was a former student that was responsible for this, the grief would be paired with anger. The students at Taft cared for Mr. Levin. They felt like he truly cared, and most of them never took his kindness for granted. Nobody could understand why. Unfortunately, there was no logical reason. The allure of quick money,
it's not logical.
And the idea that they would actually get away with it led to a horrific outcome.
Exactly. bruh, I'm gonna stop pausing it. But the fact, all right, fuck it.
Opinion pieces were
I done said it all this whole time.
What happened to Jonathan?
This shit pissing me off though.
Basically,
That shit pisses me off so fucking bad.
Is what got his life taken. Now, Jonathan wouldn't be the first or the last good teacher to show how much he cared. He wouldn't be the first to take this approach and try to relate to his students through music and real life experiences. But unfortunately, he would be the one whose life ended
This motherfucker worked with Sean Diddy Combs and Biggie Smalls. Let's do the man. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, but bro, I gotta look it up. Sean Diddy Combs has a net worth of $1 billion. I don't even know if y'all can see that. $1 billion. You was around a $1 billion man. Even if he wasn't a $1 billion man back then, he was with Biggie Smalls, and Biggie Smalls was popping. I'm not even aware of the music back then. I was too young. But I do know that Biggie Smalls and Tupac was running shit back then, along with Sean Diddy Combs. Bro, let me see. Biggie Smalls, the Notorious B.I.G., had a net worth of $10 million, bro. $10 million. I don't even know if y'all can see that. He had a net worth of $10 million in 1997. In 1997. You around all these people with money, but you choose to rob and kill the one person who actually gave a fuck about you. I don't understand it.
this way.
I don't.
Felt shocked because, saying the dude was nice. Saying because a guy with a lot of money working up in Taft, it's weird. You know what I'm saying? Yo, a dude really supposed to be, lapping up in cars and all of that. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of money.
Now I've seen them in the hallway and things like that and be conversated. He was a very nice teacher. I never had classes with him, but my boyfriend did. I was devastated. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. I came to school crying. I was telling all my friends, he's dead. He said they didn't want to believe me. They was like, stop lying. He can't be dead. He can't be dead. And I'm crying in their face and they still didn't want to believe me. Then when the media came, they was like, oh, he's dead for real. And everybody just started crying. It's a great loss for Tav. He never went about it whereas he acted any different or everybody treated him any different because he was just like a regular person. He came to school, he took the train, he went home. If he was as rich as some, they would have a nice car and he wasn't like that. He was just like any average teacher in the school, He never was prejudiced towards us. He treated everybody equally. He never acted like he was more above us, or more above our standards. He treated us proper, proper. He showed us enough love. For some teachers, they don't even last a year in here before they already telling us that they leave in the next year. Oh, it's a lot of teachers that I had in here, that wasn't as better off as he was, and they was ready to leave on us the first year. Like, oh, I'm not staying in here, I'm leaving, And to see that he stayed with us, If it was the kid who killed Mr. Levin, that was on him. We all loved him. You know what I'm saying? If he wanted to go and play himself and kill a man that tried to help him, because I'm almost positive Mr. Levin would try to help him, because he tried to help everybody.
Thank you.
Mr. Levin did try to help him, and he went back at Mr. Levin because he got upset at Mr. Levin for something.
You know what I just thought about? Mr. Levin, his daddy is the CEO of Time Warner, right? Fuck the fact that his daddy is rich, but I feel like Mr. Levin would have did everything in his power to help this man with his music career. He would have possibly helped promote his music. You know what I'm saying? Bro really fucked himself. He really did a number with this one, dog. He really did a number, bro.
I find it unacceptable.
Stupid ass
Was held
motherfucker.
for Jonathan Levin at the Park Avenue Synagogue on Manhattan's Upper East Side. More than 2,000 people would attend to pay respects to Jonathan. Everyone from celebrities like Ted Turner and Jane Fonda to friends, family, colleagues, and students filled the inside of the synagogue from wall to wall. Jonathan's father, Gerald, was surrounded by loved ones who at some points had to help him to the front row for the service, since the grief was almost debilitating. Cries can be heard across the room, and some of those cries were coming from almost 300 students of his that were all in attendance. They recited poems, shared their pain, and all spoke of the huge effect he had in their lives. The teens held a sign of their own creation that read, "Taft High School. We are his kids," letting the world know that no matter how much time passed, and no matter what anyone had to say about Jonathan's approach to teaching, they would never forget him, and they would always carry his memory with them wherever they went. Student after student visited the podium to tell their stories, all while his family stood in the front row, fighting back their tears. Flowers and cards with kind words were also left by many at Jonathan's apartment building, right on the entrance door.
Bro,
Jonathan's...
I'm sorry, y'all. This shit really pissed me off. But I always say, when people do dumbass shit like this, instead of giving them life in prison, bro, we need to just go back to the Roman days, dog. Like, put them motherfuckers in the middle of a fucking coliseum and just let us have a whoop ass off, a ass whooping off. Everybody beat the shit out this motherfucker. Like, beat the dog shit out this motherfucker. I'm talking about bring anything you want to bring and beat the dog shit out this bitch. Because that is some stupid ass shit, bro. Especially with the surroundings that you had. Bruh.
His family knew exactly how good of a person he was, and knowing how many others saw the same in him made them thankful. But it also made it even harder, because the loss was immense. A few weeks after events unfolded, during their graduation ceremony,
it's always the good people, dog.
At Taft would unveil a new street sign that read, "Jonathan M. Levin Way," right next to the school, on East 172nd Street. His father, Gerald, and other loved ones were in attendance. The sign would be revealed to cheers as the awful news still settled in. It was a brief moment of happiness for those who wanted so badly to move on from this tragedy, but they also wanted to keep his memory and legacy as close as possible. During graduation, students shared kind words about who Jonathan was and what he meant to them, each testimonial more heartbreaking than the last. It was clear that his memory was one they wanted to hold on to for a very long time, someone they wouldn't forget. On December 12th of 1998, more than a year after Jonathan's passing, Carol, his mother, would visit Taft High School to meet many of the students and staff that Jonathan was so fond of and who were just as fond of him. They held
That's gotta be hella hard for her.
The Jonathan Levin Memorial Classic, which had a total of 8 teams, all playing in Jonathan's memory. She also visited the newly built Jonathan Levin Media Center in the school, a room filled with brand new Macintosh computers, lots of equipment, and a large television for the students. This was apparently because before Jonathan passed away, he wrote a proposal to have a room like this in the school, knowing it could be very helpful and keep the students engaged. The room was funded after he passed away. Carol had this to say when she visited. "This place has a special place in John's heart. He absolutely adored it. I am honored to know if I can have him with me, at least I know that he was loved by a great many people here." The judge presiding over Corey Arthur's trial held nothing back, as he referred to Arthur as sadistic and manipulative. And on December 11th of 1998, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for his part.
It ain't enough, bro. They need to beat the shit out this motherfucker.
In Levin's death. Montoon Hart would have been facing the same sentence, but lawyers would argue that Hart was drunk or high when he spoke to authorities and told them everything he knew. And because of that, all charges against Montoon Hart,
a drunk tongue is a truthful tongue,
were dropped. He would face no jail time. He maintained his innocence, telling Jonathan's mother that he was sorry for what happened to her son.
Wait. Hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up.
Montoon Hart would have been facing the same sentence, but lawyers would argue that Hart was drunk or high when he spoke to authorities and told them everything he knew. And because of that, all charges against Montoon Hart were dropped.
All charges was dropped for duct taping, slashing, slicing, and stabbing a man while you watch your partner shoot him in the back of the head and leave the murder scene and go on the run were dropped because at the time of being questioned, you were drunk or high. So basically, any fucking crime, even murder or accomplice to a murder, if you go into the investigation room, the interrogation room, drunk or high, and tell on yourself, gets your charges dropped. That is unfucking believable.
He would face no jail time.
That is unfucking believable.
Telling Jonathan's mother that he was sorry for what happened to her son, but he wasn't the man who did it. In November of 2020, Hart was arrested following a sting operation involving a gun trafficking ring.
You give a nigga an inch and he'll take a whole fucking mile. You goofy ass bitch, you just got off for fucking murder and you go off and do some dumb ass shit again. What the fuck be wrong with niggas, dog? I really don't understand this shit.
He was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Your dumb ass escaped jail only to go right back to jail.
If you visit the corner of East 172nd Street near Taft High School today, you won't find Jonathan Levin's name. It's long been removed. His memory lives on through his family, his friends, and his former students. The people who've carried his lessons with them for the last 27 years. The people who spent time with him, knew him, and knew how much he cared about his position. He didn't see this as a job or a task. He knew how important it was to be there, to be present in these kids' lives when they needed it the most, even if he had his challenges ahead of him. Earlier, I made comparisons to the film 187. It's hard not to see the similarities. The teacher who cared and tried everything he could to make a difference. The colleagues and students who'd become enamored with his vibrant personality. The moment he found love through his work. And the moment he came face to face with a former student, culminating in a horrifying end. There have been many teachers just like Jonathan before and after him. Teachers who've gone the extra mile for their students. Teachers who have shown their love in a multitude of different ways. But Mr. Levin, unfortunately, isn't here to talk about it. That chance is forever lost. So, his memory also lives on here, with us, and those who will never forget him. Rest in peace to Jonathan Levin, and my deepest condolences go out to his family, his friends, and those who will always be his kids.
That's fucking insane, dog. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this, dog. Y'all leave y'all thoughts and opinions down below. I'll be looking in the comments. You made it this far, man. I appreciate y'all for stopping by the channel, rocking with your boy. But that's gonna do it for this one, man. Make sure you stick around to the channel for more videos dropping, man. This your boy Shy J, and I'm out. Peace.